been doing hangouts with people, but you're the first person who offers satsangs, and I felt a real connection with you since a friend of mine, Doreen, introduced me to you 2 years ago, and I just felt you as a sister in my heart immediately. I just knew you and I would be really good friends.
Yeah, it feels like that.
You know, it's just like, oh, yeah, I know this.
Yeah, I know you.
But you really know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So I'll do an introduction now.
Okay.
Let's see what unfolds. Hello, everybody. My name is Reenah Sun, and I'm calling from Australia. I'm just getting comfortable doing these calls now. I don't talk much, or at least not much in the past couple of years, and realizing it's okay now to be in the spotlight and to do inquiry for myself and inquiry for you. And lately, a few friends and I have been reflecting on what it is that, in life that makes us love and feel satisfaction. And we've been looking at how society affects us with all its distortions. And one of these distortions is gender bias. And I want to look at what it is to be a woman in this stage of evolution. And so I'll be talking to Ananta, who's just been traveling in Europe and now arrived in Thailand. And Ananta's been offering satsangs to people, and I've known her for a couple of years and had a few conversations with her and feel her like a sister in my heart. So welcome, Ananta. Nice
Hello.
of you to come here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was just wondering, you know, people come to you in satsangs and they ask you questions. And with these questions, do you find there's a difference between men and women? Like, is there a gender bias?
When I'm asked sometimes by guys, and I can see the whole thing is there is a difference between the vision of truth for male and female, but generally, and I don't really find that in what we call spiritual or truth or that, generally I don't think we can generalize. You know, I don't feel that we can generalize because we are so unique, every single one of us. Yet in the male-female, it seems to be more of a male thing to... You often find when guys are sharing truth that they've stepped into a place of nothing and nobody and the cave and no drama, and like there's a kind of quite often, it's not like by a rule, it's quite often I've seen it like a denial of the emotional world inside of them with spiritual talk, like going into the cave and withdrawing, but using a kind of a spiritual language to make that an enlightened view. Yeah, and I used to, when I first started sharing satsang, I started sharing together with a partner, a guy. We were together 7 years, and we started sharing together, and it was so obvious that we both had this, like when he was talking, he was very, very, very clear and never going in the drama and never, never giving any place to the emotional world. And then when I was sharing, I was meeting people in it and getting them to meet the truth in that, and more talking about the fullness of everything rather than the emptiness, the juiciness, the everythingness. And his aspect was more that there is nobody, there is nothing, there is, yeah.
So you were into
that
the
kind of,
embodiment. So you were feeling
yes,
the expressing the embodiment, and he
totally.
goes into the
The cave.
spaciousness, or yeah, the
Yes,
cave,
yes,
and so do you
yes.
find that the cave is like a resignation of?
What stays the same always is stillness, is who I am. Awareness is seeing through everything. This is always stays the same. Yet there's a maturing of the recognition of being in life. It's always maturing as we meet more and more of the humanness. Yeah. So I would say that at that point in time, it was like that. Yeah. Whereas now in the sharings, like in the sharings I've just been in the last few months, I noticed like when there were quite often guys who'd been on this kind of enlightenment search, and they would come to me and they would ask like questions that were really like, you know, they've got this like idea or vision that it should look a certain way, and in that way there would be no drama. You know, they had absolutely no idea that all of this still happens, and that there is no way that you ever can get away from all of this. You know, so because they're always trying to reach a place and get to a place where you get away from all of this, all this humanness, my vision is that everything that's happening in the whole of humanity is all in our system, male or female. It's all here. Yeah, there is no separation. Yeah, so it's all going to still arise, even if you so-called realize who you are. There's no stopping of that. So, but these guys, where they're like conditioned by the spiritual talk, are waiting to arrive at a place, and I say guys, but I also say the male aspect of in the woman coming and saying, well, when is it all going to be over? You know, I have the recognition, I realize that I am the awareness of every thought, feeling, sensation, but still I feel jealousy, I feel this, I feel that. When is it going to be over? And this I call the male attitude.
So
Yeah.
we're all unique, and what does it take for a woman to feel comfortable in some of these concepts, even, or a man to feel comfortable with by they embody this in their system?
I would say that there's now coming, it's coming on the table like an invitation to be in the humanness, to be awakened is to be in the humanness. It's not a denial of all this humanness. It's a coming back to meet it all. Like the willingness to actually be in all of it is what I call freedom. Yeah. It's not the freedom of it never arising. It's the freedom of being in it totally, and going, okay, yes, jealousy arises, fear, it all arises, it's all here, and the willingness to just be here in it and experience it fully. This is the embodiment. Yeah, I find it easy to bring anybody into the direct experience of freedom in any moment, and to recognize that I am that which is always free. This part is easy, so easy, and it's only the beginning. Yeah. So what's not so easy is to it is easy once they say yes to just meeting the experience, but there is such a spiritual conditioning of why is this arising, it shouldn't be there, and then this whole another layer of identity comes in to try to.
How do you get them to meet the experience of being here?
Well, for example, if I get a picture of a guy in my mind now who was asking me about this, and he came into the recognition of freedom, and then started coming all the frustration and irritation about stories in his life. He didn't want the job he had. He wanted a different existence. So instead of going to talk about the different job or the different existence, I ask him to just come to his body and just notice what is moving through the body right now, what is here right now. Can we just meet in that?
So one needs to embody the feeling of what is here now, and within that embodiment, I guess we notice the story, or we notice that we've been following a thread of thoughts, and by coming into the body and feeling, we just somehow have our attention freed up.
Well, this is it's so simple, but it's such a conditioning. Like the body has, I find myself saying that when the child gets the first activation, the way the body responds to that is starting to create and following a story about he or she or what or why, and what I would like, what I don't like, so this is going on. The moment you get an activation, any body, the mind will start to tell the story about it, and just having enough presence to just cut that and just come into what is actually being touched and just be there, and what I call dropping into it, and don't give any energy to that mind pattern, just not giving any energy to it at all, being the space that is aware of it, so it comes into consciousness, but not in any way following it, cutting it and coming here. And we've done everything to move away from it, even spirituality, a movement away from not wanting to feel pain. Yeah.
So when you get into that quiet space, you in that stillness, he's inactive. So how does that translate to him then wanting to go out and get a job because he wants to get a job? And
no, he's in a job. He's already in a job, and he told me that he doesn't want to wake up in the morning. He's fully resistant to waking up in the morning to go to get to the classroom to teach the kids, right? And what I invited him to look at was the energy he was taking to the classroom, to those kids.
But it's okay to look for a new job too.
Life is happening, and life happening includes resistance in certain moments. Having no resistance to the resistance and just experience the experience as it is freedom. Yeah. It's the story that we're continuously practicing and believing in that creates an energy that continues to create our so-called future, which is only ever now. It doesn't change. The so-called future that doesn't exist, that is only now, will never change for as long as we're practicing the same story. Yeah.
Sometimes we interpret that teaching to not take any action or do anything towards our towards the future.
Well, let's look at this moment. We talked about this meeting a few days ago, right? And we were talking about meeting a few days later, which would have been our future. And that preparation, it just happened. I don't feel like I took any action. You know, I participated, I said yes, and I kept this space free, but all this happened like without, it's a happening, isn't it? And whatever will happen out of this, it's a happening. We don't know. You know, what I invited that guy that I was referring to, what I invited him to do was fall in love with this moment. Whatever this moment is, to fall in love with this moment. And then if he's bringing that to the classroom to meet these children he's going to teach, he's got more of a true meeting than the teacher and these horrible kids. Yeah, a true meeting. And then there's a meeting of being to being, and then you're really teaching the children. But it's the going there, having to teach something you don't really are not in love with. Then you cannot really, these children feel that. And then they resist because they don't want a teacher who doesn't want to be in the classroom. Yeah? It's the meeting itself. The meeting. Everything for me is about the meeting, the true meeting of life. And that's only ever this moment, this moment, this moment, yeah? Of course, our minds are, you know, I'm about to travel soon, so my mind is projecting a future of how to, what to, la 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 la. There is this male and female thing working, you know, like I feel very much in the celebration of the fullness of life, you know. It's really about, when I guide meditations, it's always about dropping into the fullness and the juiciness and the drinking of the fullness of the silence. It's never the emptiness, right? So that's a more of a, just in my language, a female expression. Yet I'm guiding it in a very male way of keeping everything still.
Have you ever done women's groups or thought of doing women's groups, Ananta?
Never. No. Have you?
I've participated in many women's groups, and I found, I enjoyed that very much because, I don't know, I think it's kind of nice for women to connect with women and for men to connect with men, particularly, you know, because with women we can share about our cycles, and we can share about childbirth, and we can share about menopause, and you know,
well, you know, this was quite interesting. At the last group I had, towards the end of the group on the last day, this naturally happened without any plan. The women started to share about what happens to them during the before they're going to bleed. And it was actually like they started giving feedback to each other and what their experience is, and we were sharing about how to deal with all of that. And it was quite powerful that there were men present in the room listening to it and actually getting some awareness about how all these women are saying the same, how they actually go through the same kind of thing, and how it's not just somebody's wife or somebody's girlfriend making a story. It's actually a real thing happening. And there were guys present in the room that were going like, wow, you know. So yeah, I guess that it might be a powerful thing to have a women's sharing and a male sharing in the same space as well.
and to come together as well. Certainly, it's
Yeah.
insightful. Particularly, I always felt like premenstrual tension has always been
Yes.
very, very misunderstood by both men and a lot of women. I always felt
Yes.
like this
Totally.
time is a
Yeah.
time where we can really, it's an insightful time actually. And
Oh,
so we, rather
yes.
than surrendering
Yes.
to the experience and finding a relaxation within that
Yes.
experience and
Yes.
allowing the insights and discovery to arise, we make it we build on a story somehow, on an old
Yes.
collective story,
Yes.
a very,
Yes.
very
And
old story.
somehow because there's not the awareness to respect what I find in my experience is that the body, what the body, mind, or spirit, or whatever is asking for is quiet, alone time to turn inwards. Yeah. To have some space is asking for space, some space to be, just to be. And most women, well, I don't say most women, that's not quite accurate, but many who are not aware, they don't recognize that just space is needed for for them to get the insights, because in space seeing happens, right? So they fill up the space by or uh, wanting, needing, like those hormonal waves that can bring those feelings of wanting, needing, whatever. They get taken by them instead of creating the space which is needed
Yes.
to
Like a
see.
lot of tribal women, I know a lot of tribal women around their time of bleeding would go off on their own, or,
That's
well,
what
of
I
course
do.
they could,
That's
in society to get today, it's really challenging for a career woman, for example, who's got children and can't get the time off to
totally.
go
Yeah.
and be by herself. So
Mm.
somewhere within that, I think women are starting to discover that they can find this spaciousness within their busyness. What do you think
Yes.
about that?
Yes. Totally. I mean, most people who organize for me and work with me, they just can't believe the way I am with my periods. It's like a story I'm kind of famous for, because all my schedule is built around that. And all my schedule is built on the agreement that if I suddenly start bleeding, everything is cancelled. And that's hard for a lot of women to understand. They go, "What do you mean you're not going to do it? Like, what do you mean? What, you can't?" And I say, "No, I have to stop everything. And then it's time for me to I have to stop, you know." And sometimes, of course, at this age, almost turning 50, it comes whenever it feels like it. So it can happen that I'm caught in the middle of busyness. And, you know, I'm always talking about dropping. I'm always talking about that. And that is the key for me. Wherever I am, whatever I call it, drink the bliss, you know, where space happens and seeing happens, then I'm recharged. And if I actually get the time of the bleeding to just drop into myself and go, I get like incredible insights. It's such a special time not to have with yourself. It's really a gift time. And I guess it must be really difficult if you're a housewife with children. You'd know more about that than I would.
Well, I was a single mother with two daughters. Of course, they've grown up
Wow.
now, and they're both in their 20s. And I found the balance of understanding this tension that was building up in my body was really trying to tell me something. So I would
Yeah.
really somehow stop and listen to what my body was really trying to tell me, and I would inquire into the thoughts that would start spinning the story and just bring myself back here, and discovered it was a very, very powerful time. It was
It is,
actually a
yes.
real time of softness. It
Yes,
can be
absolutely.
soft. It's a very soft place.
Absolutely.
But we instead it's so easy to run with this intense energy because the energy builds up in the body so much that often it for many people it can turn into a perceived rage, but really that's just the resistance. And so I really
Yeah,
learned to, yeah.
that can only happen, in my experience, that can only happen if I'm not giving myself what I need. I'm not taking the space, and I'm allowing, and it's down to me, of course. I'm allowing somebody else to take the space. Yeah. And then I can get like full of tension. But actually more and more this tension turns into bliss. It's like such an expansive time. Yeah. And I feel really more and more like when I drop into that tension that turns into bliss, I can feel every woman that ever existed. It's like I am all the woman. Yeah.
So is there anything you can do to drop into the bliss? Like what are your tricks?
Drop into the tension. That's the doorway. Like you've mentioned it. You've said it yourself a few times. Like when that tension is building and it can turn into rage, and it's trying to tell you something. It's trying to tell you, just stop running around like a lost. Turn back, stop, and come back to yourself. And if it's full of tension and story, lay down and drop into that tension. For surrender, that was the word you used, and that's exactly it. Surrender into the tension. Don't try to change it. Don't try to fill it up with whatever. Fall into it and just keep letting go into the tension. And there will come a moment where the tension opens up and there's space. And when we keep dropping into the space, it turns into bliss. But I don't want to sell that, because then women or people get the idea that, okay, I'm going for the bliss, and they don't want to, there's no surrender to the tension. You know what I mean? It's really the surrender into what is. And I find that in those days of the bleeding, if I really create that space for myself, things like really just giving beautiful oils and the softness, like you said, and just really taking the space to be in the feminine energy. It's such a doorway.
So,
Yeah.
so women who are running around with a lot of activities and some even trying to be like men in the busyness and the activities, forget to give themselves that space and that spaciousness, like you
Yeah. and
say, to
and then what happens? They want it from the guy. You're not giving me what I need, right? They start a fight with the guy. They start making a problem with the guy. The guy is not giving me what I need. Maybe you're not for me anyway, blah, blah, blah. Yeah? But I also find that at that time of the month, whatever's been tucked away in a corner comes up really strong. Yeah? It wants to be seen. It wants to be looked at.
so women are very aware, or possibly more aware of their cycles, which is what I really enjoyed about, say, women's circles. It wasn't to come together to be against man or anything like that,
Right,
other than to
right.
share and just receive one another and,
Yes. Actually,
to look at
that
the
is happening.
processes.
That is
And
happening a lot here in the place where I live here now. There's a lot of that going on here.
yes, and so I really love also what you suggest about that we also have these sharings openly with man. And it's interesting that we know our bodily cycles, and what about men? How well do they know their bodily cycles? Do they
Well, you know,
have...
first, I would like to just also mention that I meet so many women who are not aware of this. You know, that I meet women who are in consciousness circles and they haven't got any awareness about all of this, and they are all like mixed up. And you know, I can be working with organizers and they are like and getting into problems, and I say, wait a minute, when was your last bleeding? And they say, oh, I just started bleeding, and all the trouble that they were making was that, but they had no awareness of it. You know, so there are also a lot of women that are not conscious about this.
Well, that's what they need from you, that awareness, you know. And I think you know, the understanding is there, but somehow it hasn't been embodied, which is why
It hasn't been.
we're attracted to these spiritual teachings, because they resonate, and somehow because they resonate, we somehow conceptually believe that we know it, but really we haven't embodied it.
Exactly, exactly. It really, you know, what is spiritual awakening if it's not in these, you know, from the very first beginning when I started speaking, I don't know, 8 or 10 years ago, I started speaking about my periods immediately because that was like such an issue in my life. And it comes down to that. It really, really comes down to where is awakeness now, you know? It's in this moment to moment to moment, ground floor, these basic things. And the period is such a big thing for so many women, and they put that aside. That's not, I want to get awake, then I won't have to deal with all that. I also recently met a woman, a young woman in her mid-30s, who, you know, done lots of satsang and lots of has the recognition, and she was coming with this very male idea of, why hasn't the jealousy stopped? I'm still suffering. Why? I'm awake, but I'm still suffering. Why? And she was just about to start taking contraceptive pills so that she didn't have to experience all this menstrual stuff. And I was just like, what? You know, this is far away from my vision. Yeah, it's really all this stuff is where you're really going to wake up if you're willing to come into that.
Yeah, so
So
it must say something about, we have a lot of this spiritual teaching, so to speak, and yet do you think a lot of that teaching is actually masculine? Because otherwise, why aren't the masses getting it? Why aren't we getting it?
the old way of disciples around a master, and a master being in some place where the others are not, and so then they become followers. And this, for me, in my vision, is all out of date, and it keeps the seeker in place of trying to get somewhere in the future, and there's just no recognition of freedom now. So I find this vision really out of date, and that vision was all about practicing to overcome all this humanness, yeah. And where we're at now in 2012, the awakening is right here in the marketplace. It's nothing to do with going to a master and becoming a follower and practicing and denying any part of life. Yeah, so it's really in the everythingness. And I feel like more and more guys are having to come out of the cave and to admit that the moment they step out of the cave, it's all here, it all arises. There's no way out. And it's just coming now, the question you asked before. I also see that it's amazing how many men don't have the awareness of what, and they cannot, it's not their fault, of what is happening to a woman every month. There's not many men who are actually can be awake and present to that in a supportive way. So then there's always that separation, yeah, and educating, and I don't mean this in a way of who knows what I mean, but educating a male to come to the understanding of this can only be like a step forward. You know, why separate? And like the woman goes to do her thing and bleeds and wakes up and goes through this process, and the guy still doesn't understand a bit of it. And I find it so powerful that what just happened naturally a couple of weeks ago, these guys happened to be in the room while women were starting to share, and they were like, wow, like it's so helpful to them to start to try to even imagine what a woman, the form of a woman is, you know, like what this embodies, like the whole of the feminine aspect of nature, like the whole thing that happens here. Like the men are going like, wow, I had no idea. I just thought she was blaming me for everything, you know. It's such a deeper thing happening, and the main reason that the woman or the female is so pissed off with the guy is because he's just so far away from being able to be there, to be able to stand and be awake in it. So she starts blaming him. You know what I mean? I mean, I've been doing that for so many years, not anymore, but there was definitely a time when I just could not be around my partner without blaming him for something at that time of the month. And it wasn't even me doing it. It was just happening. And I was just seeing like, oh my God, he only has to walk in the room and I'm on his case. And
Because we're
really,
giving it so much meaning at the time, aren't we? We're giving
I want his presence. I want his presence. That's all I want. All I'm trying to do is bring him present. You know, and you know, you must have heard of the David Data stuff. Came across that some years later, and
yeah.
that's pretty big around here, where I live here. The whole David Data stuff, and the females are all going in their light, and the males are all being present, and it's beautiful. But we have both. We have the male and the female here, and so do the guys, right?
We've been doing the Barry Long stuff around here. Of course, Barry Long is Australian, and David Data was around this area for a while too, some years ago. But yeah, I don't know if you know Barry Long.
Yeah, I've listened to some of his stuff, but I've never I never was able to meet him or anything like that. But I've heard of it, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this place is just like Tantra, 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 you know, everything. It's a little bit the drama of Tantra.
Yes, it's quite funny. I always joke, really, you know, we do all these Tantra workshops, but really all we need is just a weekend where we turn off the televisions and telephones and lock ourselves up with a partner and simply just sit and be together. You know, I
Yes.
think the reason people
Yes.
get so much out of a Tantra workshop is simply because they gave themselves some space that they wouldn't have at home.
Exactly, exactly. And it's really like, it's like everything else. They can get lost in the practices because it's not about the practices ever. And like Tantra, just like awakeness is the natural state,
Yeah,
right?
Tantra has to be so simple, you
It's
know.
just the natural state. I mean,
Yes.
being 7 years old, it was all tantric, right? Because it's the natural state. So now there's like workshops and certificates and all this thing, practices to become like the natural state.
And being
I mean,
able to be with ourselves in that natural state, you know, like
yeah,
sitting with our own naked body in
yes,
a natural state first, you know, and being
yes,
embodying that and then meeting our partner in that.
yes.
But first, you know, like not rather than seeking something from our partner to give us, you know, it must come from within, right?
Absolutely, and that is energized and nurtured when we take the space to bleed rightly. You know, that's what comes up to me now, because, you know, I just so love that time of the month when I can just lay naked and put oils all over and just like love being in the fullness of making love with myself, with existence. And then that's what's needed before I can come and really be with a partner. If I don't have that,
Yes. Yes.
you know,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
because when I don't have that and I'm on a full busy schedule and I'm going like country to country, packing and stressed, going da, 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 by the time I come back, before I can be with a partner, I need that. I need to be.
And yes, and so many different practices say different things, like some say, oh, it's up to the man to bring woman to presence, and others say it's for the woman to bring the man to presence. You know, it's like whoever is present, whether it be the
Yes,
male or the female, I think just
yes,
by embodying our own sensuality and receiving
yes,
that and allowing our partner to be where they are and allow
yes.
that spaciousness might give them just enough gap to drop deeper into their own sensuality.
Yes, and this is love, you know, as you speak, I really feel my heart just like, because this is love. When we are in a partnership, and any partnership, just the meeting we have now, you know, any meeting we have, whether it's a lover or being with a friend or whatever, when our agreement is that we are here for the space, for meeting in truth, whatever, like we have an agreement that if one of us goes a little bit off-centered and falls down, that the other, if they can hold the space, they will. Like that we're not going to just jump on that and start pointing and blaming and reacting, and but if we can, we're going to hold the space for whatever is here, because it's coming up in you, or it's coming up in me, it's coming up in the space, right? It's in the space. And
Yes, because we're all going to react at some point, and for me now it's
yes, yes,
how long am I going to hold on to that reaction for? So these days I find now I can just step out of it so much quicker. You
yes,
know, I can sort of peel that coat off and bring my partner here, or vice versa. You know, like he can
yes,
peel his coat off very quickly and invite me here, and
yes.
we both committed to just uh,
When that
dropping it
commitment
and
is
coming
there,
back. Yes.
yes. When this commitment is there, it doesn't matter who's holding the space, and it doesn't matter who has so-called lost it, you know, it's there is no separation, right? So when that commitment is there, we're really in love. It's not like being in love with the other, although that's included, but being in love with life and truth, and like really living this magnificent, incredible incarnation in the highest possible way we can. Otherwise,
Yes.
for what? Yeah?
Mm. Yeah, we're
Otherwise,
in
for what?
love. Yeah, in the midst of reaction, in the midst of frustration or whatever, you know, I know we stand on pure intentions. We are in love. There's
Yes, yes,
yeah.
yes. Love is holding it all. And because love is holding it all, even deeper, dirty laundry can come out of the basket. Yeah? Because love is here to hold it. So then it can really sometimes go right to the stuff that's never been seen and never had a chance to really be held in the space. So it comes up for the freeing, yeah?
And it will come up, it has to come up. And for me, this invokes trust. It invokes a
Yeah.
trust to allow it to come up and to embody that and to express it in a way that's not blaming
Yes.
anyone, but just to
Yes.
say what is here. And
Yeah. And even within that, like blaming can happen, and then the moment we see it, we see like, wow, that's just like such a never-ending, that this is like it's a way to say it is it's not a personal thing, like that we're when it arises in one of us, that we start the blame game. This is really not a personal thing that's happening. It's something that's in existence in humanity that hasn't yet been healed or freed globally. Yeah, a way of being that's coming up to really be like, because when we free it in our own process, there's a freeing in existence all through. Yeah, something that comes to mind right now. I'm living in a place like this. This house is wide open, and I've got neighbours there. It's a resort, so people come and go in the houses around. And last night, 4:30 in the morning, a fight starts between a couple, and the guy is screaming, and it becomes violent, and I can hear everything, and I'm just like laying there in the bed, and suddenly the guy goes into deep, deep crying, like a baby, like a 3-year-old, yeah? And I'm laying in the bed, and I can just feel it all moving through my system. And it felt like such an old pain in humanity, you know? Like, this is man's cry. Yeah, this is where man starts crying for freedom and longing for the truth. But it starts showing up in that. I mean, they were going at it, they were fighting. And he was crying like a 3-year-old calling for mummy. And but I started feeling it through my system, but I could feel the whole of man's cry in that. And where that is leading us to value what we're talking about here is meeting life, stillness, coming still and present in these sensations, in these activations. It's huge. It's absolutely huge. It's not just oh yeah, let's be present in the sensations. It is the healing of humanity. Yeah, it's this cry of man longing for freedom and longing for God. We're waking up in those activations. That's the wound of man. It's not personal. You get what I mean? Am I expressing that? I don't know if you can.
Yes, beautiful.
Yeah?
I'm receiving you. Yes. Yes.
It's really like it arises in us as a personal thing when we start suddenly finding ourselves blaming somebody else and putting it somewhere else. It's really arising in us as an expression, but it's not us. It's the sickness of humanity, like the
It's like
wound.
that collective conditioning,
Yes,
it just
yes,
grabs us,
yes,
and we give so
yes.
much meaning to it,
Yes.
it
Well, we can't avoid but to sometimes feel it come through our system. It doesn't mean that we're still hooked and we're still identified and we're still not there yet, or we're still whatever. It just that we cannot avoid humanity moving through because we are in the collective. We cannot separate from that. So how are we going to be a light in the collective?
it's our challenge to be, it's a challenge to receive and be the space for all this, to allow it to come through.
Yes, and that is what being awake means, is to be willing to come back and be part of
Beautiful,
this.
yes, beautiful to come back, yes.
To come back and be part of this liberation of man. And for that to happen, we have to meet it in our system. We can't just be having 100% present, awake, beautiful experience 24 hours a day. We have to embody all that's not free in humanity, because we're part of the collective. So
So clear, Ananta. That's so clear.
so yeah, it feels so clear. It feels like there's no escaping it, and I experience all of it, and I have to be willing to be in it more than ever, you know. It doesn't mean because I share satsangs or hold the space for others that it doesn't arise in me. It all does, and more than ever, it has to be like 100% yes, you know. Yeah, walking what we realize. There's like a double in this spiritual. There's a global awakening happening, and in this spiritual global awakening that's happening, there seems to be two visions going on. And one of them is that we're going to, there's nobody here, nothing ever happened, and like somehow a denial of all of this. And
Yeah.
the illusion of arriving in a place where that's over there, you know. And the other vision is about really coming into it as I'm speaking. And yeah, I have a reaction come up in my system towards that. In fact, it's what makes me speak a lot of the time. As soon as I hear somebody speaking about that whole, there's nobody here, it's all just happening. And I speak that as well because it's all true as well, but it's not complete. It's not a complete message, you know, it's only part of the message that there's nobody here, because there's fully, actually, you are here, I am here. It's not a separate me, but I am here as a unique being to participate in this unfolding. Yeah? Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful sharing, Ananta. Very clear.
Yes.
You share my deepest heart.
Same, same. Same, same. Yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah.
you really getting in there and making me move
Mm.
this, you know? That's how you're doing it, because it's your deepest heart.
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah. It really, can you feel it right now? It's just like, it's just one movement, yeah?
Yes.
Of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
Mm.
So I thank you so, so much, and just totally embrace and appreciate your feminine quality and expression.
Thank you so much also. I look at you and I feel that your feminine quality is much stronger than mine. Yeah,
Mm.
even though there's not like yours and mine in comparisons, I really feel that. I feel like I have a male thing coming through too, you know, that you
I,
really.
mine is there too. Mine comes out
Okay,
sometimes
yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
it's,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
now I feel a softness sitting here receiving you as you do express my heart, and the heart of many women and men, and
yeah,
it
yeah.
just invites this softness. So yeah,
Yeah, I
when we meet,
actually.
you'll get to see that rah rah Carly side of me too.
Oh, I'm already aware of it. I recognize myself here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure we will meet. I feel it more and more. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we'll be in Thailand, of course, next month, and
Yeah, I get the
we'll be there
feeling
till
that
February.
I get the feeling I'll be in December.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Stop to hear the music.
Namaste, sister.
Thank you. Thank you, Reenah.
Yeah. Lots of love. Lots of
Yeah.
love.
Same to you.
In your heart. Maybe you should give your mind a rest and put its main assumption to the test. Just let go and see who leads the best. Surrender to the music.